when you go through high school, you go through a lot of changes emotionally, physically, and spiritually. You know, there are a lot of questions that come up, and if you have a teacher that you're really motivated by, and you have a teacher that inspires you, and go right ahead, no problem, inspires you and gives you the confidence to learn more about the world you live in, but really to learn more about yourself, you find that all of a sudden you go from walking along with your head down and looking ahead like this to raising your head and seeing this horizon, okay, as you look from a mountain or from the side of a dock or from the side of a beach, and you see the tides and you see the water breaking and what have you. It changes your perspective. And then at night you look above, and when there aren't clouds and it's not raining, you see stars. And the stars are billions of years old, you know, in terms of the universe. And then it's there that you begin to really question, you know, what else is there in this world that I haven't seen or experienced? And so each of you in your own way is studying to further your life, all right? And in that, you're going to go forward with a degree, and I would imagine be able to go back to your respective communities or within the state of the FSM and be able to be a contributor to something wholesome and something greater than what you experienced. And so the celebration of you being a student today is really important to me because you're young adults now. You know more now than you knew a year ago and the year before that and what have you. But the maturity of how you apply yourself as a student, I think, is what you find yourself reflecting upon and going, I never know I could do this. I never really believed that I could do this. And maybe some of you have never had anybody in your family that continued your education as you are. And so don't ever be discouraged by new information. Don't ever be discouraged by feeling that you're failing if you don't get an A or that you just get an average grade or what have you. You can always measure success by the desire that you have to want to gain more knowledge and more information. And that usually comes, and that normally comes from lessons learned. The lessons that we have is basically a science, okay? And science is that which we already have studied, learned from, researched, and developed, all right? New ideas, new thoughts. And it's not so much a formula. A formula comes from taking certain ingredients, just like when you, the gentleman here that has a soda pop. Can you hold it up a second? What is that? What's the name of it? 7-Up or just a drink?
Modern Peace.
Okay. So that was in a laboratory, but it took scientists, okay? It took certain individuals to be able to come up with a formula, and then they developed it, and they went ahead and they packaged it. And before it could go out and be sold as a product, okay, they had to test it. And so your laboratory is here. Your laboratory is the classes that you attend. The laboratory is that which you ask the professors and the teachers questions, okay, and they give you answers. And then you formulate your own thesis, and you formulate your own concept of how you see a particular subject or how you envision the world that you live in or where you come from. You know, maybe you're not from this state, but you're from another state in the FSM. But there are things that are uniquely different from where each of you have evolved from, and you know that. You know your own families and what have you. And so one of the things that I've been doing this time is I do also teach boys and girls, men and women basketball, but I'm really blessed to be able to just talk about life. I've been to 47 countries and counting, all over the world because of basketball. And it's given me a wonderful opportunity to be able to address universities. This is one of the smallest classes I've ever addressed in my travels, but that's fine. If there was only 3 or 4, that would be fine. I look at it as an opportunity to be able to share my knowledge with you and perhaps inspire you to aspire to new levels of interest. How many of you have brothers and sisters? How many here have brothers and sisters? Okay. How many know how to do the Heimlich? If somebody's choking on food, how many understand how to dislodge that food? This 13-year-old daughter was having dinner watching a movie with her sisters and brothers and cousins. And during the course of watching the movie, she choked on a piece of chicken. It was lodged in her throat. And nobody knew what to do. Her older cousin did not know what to do, and she was choking, and she couldn't breathe, and she's holding herself like this. And so her cousin took her finger and tried to get it down into her throat to pull it out. And all it did was push it down further. And because they did not know how to do the Heimlich, it ended up where she died before the ambulance could get there, before anybody could help her. And so every year, for the second year now, they've had this fishing derby on a weekend, actually this first weekend after the New Year's. And it's in her honor. And her name was Krista de Broom. And the father gave this to me. I met the father upon my first visit. And I didn't get a chance to see him. He was off island last year. And so this was my first time to visit with him afterwards. And he told me, he said that I never knew that my daughter would be able to inspire and educate so many people by her passing. And I thought it was profound, because what happened was, in each school, at the Marshall Islands High School, there was maybe a half a dozen of 800 students that knew how to do a Heimlich. Last year, there was over 600 that now know how to do the Heimlich. And what I'm saying is that you may be in that position, all right, where you might be at a celebration, you might be at a picnic, you might be on the beach at a party, at home, and one of your relatives, one of your siblings might be choking on a piece of food, and nobody knows what to do, and so there's a panic that takes place. But yet all you have to do, you seek information, you do research, you do your papers. All you have to do is just go online, and you can find YouTube audio visual, that will show you. Take 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and now you have that knowledge. You don't have to go to a class, all right? The information's there for you, and you'll remember it, and it will allow you to be able to be in that position of emergency if it ever comes up. I've been fortunate in my life. My daughter was 1 year old, year and a half, and she was in a restaurant, and she was choking on a piece of bacon. And I lifted her up and upside down, and I hit her back like that, because you can't do it with a child. You'll break the ribs or the breastbone. And it went, it shot out, okay, and I excused myself to all the other patrons that were eating there, because they were just like, they didn't know what to do or say. And so I had that experience. I knew what to do in that situation with an infant, with a child. I had another, that was my oldest daughter, and she has I have 2 grandchildren. She has 2 sons that are 9 and 5. The second child, when he was 1 year old, they're celebrating his birthday, and she had him on her shoulder, and he was, he had some watermelon, a little piece of watermelon in his mouth, and he was, gumming it. He didn't really have any teeth yet, per se. And so he was just chewing on it, and so he chewed that, and he swallowed it, but it didn't go down all the way, and then his mother gave him another piece, because she thought that, he finished the first one. And so what happened is that second one, it got kind of caught. The first one got kind of caught, then the second one, he had gone like that, and then it went down and it got lodged. So he had like 2 pieces that were lodged here. And she's all panicked. She's running around. There are about 40 people there. Nobody knew what to do. There weren't any doctors. And so here's Papa. I go over. I take him, hold him upside down, diapers and all. Good thing he didn't have diarrhea. And I hold him upside down, and I go, bam! I hit him in the back, and out comes the first piece, but the second piece was still lodged. But he could breathe. It was like a piece of taffy or candy that was just stretched out and caught in his esophagus. And so somebody called 911. The ambulance hadn't come yet. This was like, almost 10 minutes along. But there was an emergency hospital 1 block away. And so we rushed down there, and then the emergency care, they were able to dislodge the other piece, but it had damaged, the watermelon had damaged his esophagus and caused abrasion. So really he had to stay in the hospital overnight. Had to monitor him because he had difficulty still breathing. You've been in that situation in family and in your own personal life. where something comes along and you just go, wow, where did that come from? You know, what's going on here? Never take for granted that which you have today that you may not be able to enjoy tomorrow, okay? Or something that happened yesterday that could help you learn from the experience to then further your knowledge and give you the confidence to pursue other realms of information and experience. My visit with you is completely different than the visits I had with the middle school and the high school kids in town. Where was I?
We've been to PICS, SDA, CCA, OLM.
Yeah, and the reason I say that is because it's really easy. Well, it's easier for me to speak to younger people than to educated people, and I'll tell you why. Educated people, especially young college students, you know, are pretty independent and pretty self-confident in what they're doing and applying themselves. You dress yourselves, you feed yourselves, and you know what you have to do to get the work done. And you know, if you don't get the work done, then obviously there's going to be a result, a negative result, as far as the grade or the paper that's due. And so you really are accountable to yourselves. Nobody else is accountable for you, but you are accountable for yourselves. And the only return that you have on your investment of time is when you get that grade back. All right, at the end of the semester, or you get the examination back, and you know what it is. Okay, and then you see what I put into it is what I'm going to get out of it. The work that I invest, the time that I invest in studying and doing papers and research and what have you, and how I submit it. And sure, I might take information from one of my friends. They might help me write the paper or what have you. That happens. I was in college, okay, and so I know all about being able to share information and have, you know, girlfriends help me write my papers. I wasn't very good writing, you know, but it always seemed like the girls knew how to write better than me, and I get B's on the papers and A's on the papers that she would help me with, and I get C's on my own work, you know, and so, you know, I made sure I always had a girlfriend, and I'm not denying that, okay, but here's something I want you to understand. When I took off from Honolulu 2 weeks ago to Majuro, and I share this with you because, again, expect the unexpected. About an hour into the flight, I had a kidney stone attack. And I don't know if you've ever had a relative have one of those, but it's an incredibly painful experience. I mean, it's like, it's a little stone that's very coarse that hopefully, normally you can pass it, but in this particular instance, it was the third episode I've had in my lifetime. The first one was 15 years ago. The one before this trip to Majuro was a year ago, July. I had 2 of them, and they had to use a machine on the operating table and disintegrate them with ultrasound. Okay, and that process cost $32,500 in an American hospital. I want you to think about that. And I was in the hospital for 3 days. I had the episode for 5 days. I was on painkillers and what have you. But really, really unbelievable pain. I mean, where you can't even crawl. It wipes you out. And so here I am, an hour into the flight, and I'm in my seat, and I'm moving back and forth, and it's like I'm at a concert, you know, and there's somebody up there on the stage singing. I mean, I'm moving to something, but it's not music. So the stewardess comes up to me, the flight attendant comes up and says, "Sir, are you all right?" And I go, "No, ma'am, I have a kidney stone." She goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. My father had one, and he was in so much pain, and he was crying. I've never seen my father so weakened by something like that." And she goes, "I feel so sorry for you." And I said, "Oh, thank you." And I'm perspiring. I mean, I'm just wet, okay? And you know, they can't turn the plane around. You know, I got another 3 hours to go. And she goes, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I said, "Yes. Do you have a parachute?" And she goes, "A parachute?" And I go, "Yes, it would help right now." And then she started laughing so hard because she realized that if I could jump out of the plane right now, I would. Okay, that would bring me great relief. Okay, that's where my mind was at. So now I get to Majuro. They've got the press there to take pictures. I'm being greeted by Mr. Tom Armbruster, and his wife is there, and they put a floral wreath on my head that was so nice and cool. I'm totally wet because I've been perspiring, okay, and I can't eat anything, I can't drink anything, and I'm getting dehydrated, and I'm really, you know, almost hallucinogenic in my thought process. And he goes, Coach, are you all right? And I go, no, I've got a kidney stone. I got to get to the hospital. Can you get me there? And he goes, so you can't do this radio interview? I said, no, I can't do a live radio interview right now, Mr. Ambassador. I've got to go to the hospital. So he had his driver take me to the emergency room in Majuro. And I want to share this with you because I want you to understand something about expect the unexpected and understanding that God puts us in positions that we can endure. God will test us from a faith-building standpoint. And so for the last 2 years, I've been put in these situations, all right, in my travels to the Pacific Islands. So I go into the hospital, and there's a Filipino nurse, male nurse, and then there's a Filipino doctor. And they immediately put me on IVs, and he gives me a shot here, and then he says, sir, I have to give you a shot here in your rear. And I said, no, I had those shots when I was 2 years old. And he goes, no, sir, for the pain, I have to give you a shot here. And I really don't like needles. And so I go, okay. And so he goes ahead and he holds the needle like this. I'll show you, I got a pen. And so he says, can you just bend over a little bit? I bend over a little bit, and he's got the needle like this, and he pinches me, and he goes like that. And, you know, it's a little prick, doesn't hurt too much. And I'm starting to feel better. And about 7 hours later, they released me from the hospital. And I'm still not eating. I can't eat anything. I'm nauseous, okay? But the painkiller, the sodium chloride that they put in to help flush my kidneys out to see if I'll pass the stone, you know, it's not working. I mean, I'm going into almost shock again because of the pain. I have to go back to the emergency room, okay? And this time it's at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm staying at the ambassador's residence, and I don't want to bother him, wake him up, or his wife and the dog, Skipjack. And so I sneak out to the guard post, and you have to understand, I'm just walking like this real slow. I mean, I'm like I'm 100 years old, and the guard is looking at me like he's going to get low and trying to look at my eyes to see, you know, is he looking for something? You know, and I go over to him and I go, can you get me to the hospital, please? And can you get me a taxi? And he goes, no, sir, there's no taxi. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. And I go, I have to get to the hospital, please. Can you get somebody to take me to the hospital? So, sure enough, he calls the police. So the police come and take me in their pickup truck to the hospital. Well, this truck needs to have new shock absorbers because every hole in the road, all right, it's like this. And I'm going, well, I'm you know, and they got the lights going on, and thank God he didn't have the siren going on because nobody's out there except dogs trying to cross the street. You know, and they're trying to swerve from a dog like this, like this. And so finally I'm just on the side, and I'm just going, Jesus, if you take me now. God bless you. And I look up, and the driver is driving, and he's looking in the mirror like this, you know, and he's driving, and he's looking to see how I'm doing. And I'm like this, and I see him looking at me, and I go, and he gets me into the hospital, and it's a new doctor, and it's a new nurse, okay? It's a new male nurse. And so my record, my file isn't there. It's already been locked up, all right? So I tell them that I was here earlier, and I said, take a look at your log. I signed it, and this is what they did last time. They gave me IVs, sodium chloride, 2 liters, and then they gave me a shot here. And I didn't tell them about the shot here. And so here's this male nurse. He comes up, and he goes, no, sir, for pain, we give shots here. Did you have one here? And I go, yes. And he says, well, I'll give you another one, but a little lower. And I go, well, why don't we use this on you? Okay. And he goes, no, we can't. So would you bend over, please? And so again, you know, he's like this. He's a Pinoy nurse. And so he didn't pinch me this time. He just, you know, went like this, you know, and put it in. And I felt the effects. And so I was there I was there about 8 hours, and then the ambassador showed up and was very upset with me because I felt really bad for not being aware of the fact that I was, going to the hospital again. I get released, I'm out of there, and now I have a basketball clinic with the coaches, okay? And so I'm feeling all right, but I still can't eat. I just can't, I just have no appetite. I'm drinking coconut water, okay? And I get through the day, and then 11 o'clock that night, it was 11 o'clock that night, he ended up taking me, the ambassador took me to the hospital. And I go to the hospital again, it's a new crew, it's a new doctor. And this doctor is Indian, okay, and he's been on Majuro for 12 years. And I share this with you because in each instance, their personalities, the nurses and what have you, they're talking to me, and the nurses were telling me what their needs were, because I asked them, what do you need in the hospital here? And, and they both said, we need uniforms. We don't have any uniforms. If we could just have uniforms that would identify ourselves. Because the nurses there are wearing T-shirts, that Hawaii, or they might have PI on it, But and the doctors are also wearing T-shirts, And so they didn't have any doctor smocks and what have you. So I'm already thinking about how, where I live in the United States, in Seattle, Washington, that I have people that will be able to put together doctors, nurses, outfit uniforms, okay? So now there's this new doctor, the Indian, and there's this nurse. And she's Pinoy, she's a female nurse. And she's this tall. And I tell her, I said, okay, over here I had the sodium chloride, and you can put it on this one here. You see, I have good veins, you can stick it right in there, and then you give me a shot here, and I'll just lay it here on the gurney. And she goes, no, you need to have a shot here. And I go, no, I've already had 2. No, you need 3. And so she's holding the needle like this. Now, I want you to watch this, okay? And she says, so I have the sodium chloride, I'm standing like this, okay? I'm feeling the effect, of the first shot, the painkiller. And she says, sir, you bend down, please, and pull your pants down just a little bit, okay? And it won't hurt very much. And she goes, oh, like that. Like she was sticking. I jumped so high, I almost knocked over the sodium chloride that's going into my arm. I said, why did you do that? And she goes, because you're so tall, I want to make sure that the needle got into your butt. I laid down and I fell asleep. And it really hurt. I had a bruise on my butt, like somebody took their fist and hit me. And so here I am, and then the next day, I'm in the hospital for about 5-6 hours. And then I meet this gentleman, his name's Charlie Dominic, and he's a big contractor there, a Marshallese contractor. And he heard about my situation, and he goes, Coach, my auntie has this remedy, and it's been in the family for hundreds of years. And I share this with you because when I tell you how much it cost me, okay, compared to America, I want you to understand your culture, all right, because I know there are remedies here also throughout the FSM. Anyway, he says, my auntie has this remedy. It's coconut milk, coconut water, and then they take this floral extract and they beat it, okay? And then they squeeze the oil into the liquid and they stir it and they put it back into this green coconut. And he says, you have to take 3 of these, all right, over 15 hours. And then it will go through your kidneys and it will cleanse them. And what it would end up doing is that, because they were ready to send me back to the States, okay, because they didn't have specialists. They were ready to, get on the plane, go back, because, they took a sonogram of my kidneys, they were inflamed. I was in the danger zone. But I had told, the doctors that, no, I'm not going back. I'm here, and I have too much work to do. And at the same time, I'm praying. I'm just saying, God, listen, I don't know why you're doing this to me. I don't know why it's happening. Back up a little bit. That Indian doctor was getting ready to go to Chicago. And he has a Muslim name, okay, and I want you to understand this. He has a Muslim name for more education, all right, so that he can come back to the hospital and do other type of surgical procedures that he had not studied before in medical school. But the problem was, because of his name, he was very restricted through the Homeland Security and what's going on in the United States, you know, with the so-called terrorist, you know, concern, which is real. And he says, Mr. Newell, is there anything you can do to help me be able to see if my passport, they would give me a letter, you know, recognizing that I have been a doctor here for 10 years, so that I am not, considered a threat, or that my status would be such that they would not allow me to travel freely in the state of Illinois, in Chicago, and especially going through the airports. And so I said, you know, the ambassador will be coming back, and I will talk to him about, you know, what your problem is. Introduce him to the ambassador, all right. The ambassador never met him before because he had never had to go to that hospital. The ambassador was able to help him with his passport, okay, and be able to get the proper documentation that allowed him to travel freely, okay. But what I'm saying to you is, this is all going on while I'm in great pain, but I'm understanding why it's going on. I'm accepting his will, okay. I didn't bring this on myself. I'm accepting the fact that he put me there so that I could experience this to help others, okay? I just don't like the pain threshold. He can do all he wants, but I don't like the pain. I don't like shots, okay? I really don't. So I take the coconuts, now we fast forward, I take the coconuts, and I have 3 of them over a 15-hour period, and I pass the kidney stone, okay? And it happened like about, I'd say 11:30, 12 o'clock, and I just let out, hallelujah! And, you know, and I probably woke up the ambassador. He didn't come down, or he didn't call me, but he said he heard something. He wasn't sure what it was. And I said, that was me, because I had passed the kidney stone. And he said, oh, great, Coach, I'm so glad to hear that. So what it cost me to go to the 3 ERs, okay, visits, all right, and that was a total of almost 20 hours, and 3 coconuts, $45. Okay, think about that. And I paid $32,500 to have surgery done, all right, in my hospital in the States. And so I share this with you. The richness of your culture, the history, because we have a very short history in the United States. Yeah, we got some nice looking cars, okay, some nice rides. The top goes down, you know, we got spinners on our wheels, you know, we hip hop, you know, we look good, okay, we can wear our hat backwards and sideways, and, you know, style like you back there, yeah, you got it, we got it, you got it. And so what I'm saying is that the culture is so rich. And yes, you're being educated in Western thought, okay, and Western science. The one thing that I would tell you about the United States and what makes us such a great nation, okay, is the freedom of speech and the ability that we have to be able to communicate and learn from one another. That we cross all barriers, okay, of ethnic, race, backgrounds, religions, and what have you. There's nowhere else in the world than the United States and what we represent and what we provide. An equal opportunity, okay, for women and for men, okay? And so what I'm saying to you, you each have the opportunity to affect a positive change in your culture, okay? I'm here to tell you that climate change is real, all right? I'm not saying forget about the terrorist issues and what's going on and whatever, but I'm telling you, you need to know more about the climate, because it is affecting the FSM and it's affecting the Marshalls, all right? The Marshalls is already, all right, their water level has, the sea level has already dropped almost 2 feet, okay? And they're saying maybe within 15, 20 years, it's going to be, the atolls there are going to be sea level. And what happens to those people in that culture? And so the islanders have to be unilaterally aligned, and you have to have a voice to the United Nations. You have to have a voice to the world, the great 8, all right? Because it's the industrialization okay, and the modernization in those continents that's affecting your future and your children's future. All right. So I share this with you. Be vigilant, be strong, learn as much as you can, and demonstrate, all right, demonstrate for the survival of your culture, okay? Because I genuinely have a concern because I lived in China, all right, I coached in China, I coached in Japan, the men's national team in the year 2000. I've never seen more smog as I had when I flew in my first time to Beijing. I saw 4 layers of smog as I'm flying in, all right? It went from black to gray to orange, all right, to almost like a blue haze, okay? 4 layers, not 1 or 2 like Los Angeles, but 4. And I had heard about it, but it just boggled my mind. And when they had the Olympics there, they shut down their industries almost 2 to 3 weeks before the Olympics just to clear up the air for the track and field participants and for the tourists that would come in, so they wouldn't, become sick, and be affected by it.